back to the phone lines and talk to Jim in Illinois, listening on Sirius XM 131. Hi, Jim.
Hi, Hank. How you doing? Hope you're feeling better.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to ask. I appreciate all you've done with taking us to learning about Islam, especially with people like David Wood, Robert Spencer, Sam Shamoon. I've learned so much from you and them. I've got a ton more. So what I did, probably stupid, I've got on a Christian and Islam website and talking to Muslims. And it is rather unique, kind of fun, but kind of scary as well. But one of the things that they bring up all the time is when you talk to about Islam, they bring up about our Old Testament. And I'm going to hang up. I just want to hear your thoughts, is that most of them bring up a lot of the things that happened in the Old Testament, the slavery, the taking of women, the death, God did this, God did that. And I know you've always told us to equip ourselves, and that's what I'm trying to do. There's a lot of things that God did, and he had reasons for it. But could you give me a brief synopsis of how you would answer some of those questions with a couple things, and then I'll go from there, and I'll just listen.
Yeah, and I've written about this in a book called Muslim, What You Need to Know About the World's Fastest Growing Religion, because this is one of the canards that has to be dealt with, and I've tried to bring it up in my book and present it in a memorable fashion. But let me just mention, for example, your iteration of the word slavery. I mean, slavery in the Old Testament is very, very different than the concept of New World slavery. And so people hear these words and they think anachronistically. So they take slavery in the modern context and they read it back into the Old Testament context, where, for example, someone could be called a slave even though they were a king. So, for example, if Babylon sets up, let's say King Nebuchadnezzar sets up a vassal king in Judah or Israel, well, that king can be called a slave. He has all the pomp of the palace, he has servants to serve him, and yet the word slave is attributed. Or you can have a situation where someone has sold themselves into servitude as a slave. Let's say you're a doctor and you owe someone a tremendous amount of money and you have no way of paying that money back. What you do is you sell yourself to the person you're indebted to as a slave to pay off your indebtedness. So I think that sometimes we read the same meaning into words unintentionally that we find in the modern context, and it's always pejorative, and that's not always the case. So one of the principles here is that words and phrases are not univocal, they're equivocal. They take on the meaning that the context allows them to have. The second thing I would say in this regard, and this is a little different than maybe what I've said in the past, but it's simply another way of arguing this. Whatever else the Old Testament means, and I can go through and explain that in a moment, but whatever else the Old Testament means, the one thing that we have is Jesus giving us context.